So this is the chili that I was supposed to make for my client. And even though I wasn't able to make this for her, I was able to make a very fun dessert for a client that I want to share if you stick around to the end of the video. Now, this particular client, I've actually been working with her for a year, and I love working with her because she loves to try just new things, new ingredients. Actually, when I first started working with her, I introduced her to butternut squash, and we're in that season now. And so when I sent her a picture of this chili, she was immediately like, oh, I gotta have this chili. Normally, when I think about chili, I just think of two things: beans and meat. Like, that's how I grew up. But of course, I'm not gonna use any meat for this because this is plant-based, since I'm a plant-based chef. So I had to figure out ways to introduce that savoriness. So mushrooms are gonna be a big part of it. But I'm also gonna have a new ingredient that I don't typically use that I wanted to share with you all. So this is gonna be the fennel that I'm using. It's actually my first time using it, so I'm kind of excited about using it. We're gonna save the fronds here. Isn't that so pretty? We're gonna use that as garnish for the chili to give it a nice pop of color. And then I'm gonna save the stalk here for like my own veggie stock. And really, I'm gonna be using the bulb right here. I'm basically gonna cut it up like I would an onion. It has kind of like a licorice flavor, which I actually don't like licorice, but it's like licorice-like, if that makes sense. I guess my client kind of inspired me to kind of think outside of the box as well and just try new ingredients that I don't usually cook with. So I've seen lots of YouTube videos and social media videos about people using fennel, usually for some type of stew or even pasta dishes. So I figured, let me try to use this for this chili dish because I wanted to incorporate different flavors and see how it works. So I chopped it up like how I would onions. I know for a lot of people, cooking like this can be intimidating because nobody wants to chop up all this. I get it. For me, chopping like this, I could throw this all in the food processor. I could put everything, I could take the skin off this honey nut squash. It's actually honey nut squash. It reminds me almost of a sweeter version of a sweet potato and a little bit firmer, a lot easier to cut. I could, put this in the food processor and be done quicker. But something about chopping it up for me, it makes me feel like I am taking my time. It makes me really think about what I'm doing. I tell people it feels like like I'm in a zone. I'm in a zen place. It's my calm. And so a lot of times I go to the kitchen as a way to, kind of escape from the regular demands of life and have a little moment to myself because I know my family's not gonna come in the kitchen while I'm cooking. So, we did the honey nut squash. The rest of it is really vegetables that I already had on hand. I like to use carrots because they add like a natural sweetness that I think goes really well with the squash and with the onions and with the savoriness of the mushrooms. What I didn't say in the beginning is that those mushrooms that you saw in the beginning were actually dried mushrooms. That's what I'm using to make my broth, because since I'm not using meat, I want to use something that's going to help have that umami taste where things taste really good and it's not just, a pot full of liquid and vegetables. That's really honestly why I do not like slow cookers. I know they are very convenient. I'm not hating on them. I use them a lot, especially in my early days of cooking. But it's something about dumping all that in where the flavors don't really come together to me in a way that's really good. Like, I love to saute the mushrooms like as you see here, and you get that frond, you get that base at the bottom that creates a lot of that flavor, and then you saute your vegetables on top of that and it releases a lot of that flavor. I can't get that, especially with plant-based cooking, throwing everything into the slow cooker. Now, some people, they're okay with that, to each his own. I'm not trying to hate. I'm just saying that's not what works for me. Now, I had to have some chefy component to this, so I'm actually using some chili leaves, guajillo chili leaves. I'm using that to make my own chili powder. It's a lot easier than you think. I actually got those leaves from a local international market here in Greensboro, North Carolina. So if they have it in Greensboro, I think they're pretty much in most places. I just combine that with all my favorite seasonings, mainly curry powder, paprika, and onion powder and garlic powder. And then the key is deglazing the pot with red wine. Now, don't worry, you're going to cook off the alcohol, but that is going to add like a nice richness and acidity that makes, to me, the chili even better. Don't feel like you have to do all these steps. I know some people have complained that some of my recipes can be a bit tedious. I agree. This isn't so much of a recipe that I think people should follow, but more be inspired by. Take what you like and do your own thing with it. That's how I use a lot of YouTube videos or just content in general. I see what other people are doing and say, I like that. Let me try that. I feel like that's like a big part of life anyway, right? Where someone can be your inspiration. It doesn't mean that you do everything that they do. It just means that they can help you see something differently than what you would have normally, considered it. And so I'm hoping that this recipe that I'm sharing helps you see things a little bit differently and how you can cook a meal and not necessarily rely on meat to get a lot of the flavor. Now, don't be worried. The actual recipe will be in the description because there are a lot of ingredients to it, and I want you guys to know what I'm doing. Now, I will say, when I think of chili, because of how I grew up, I also think about cornbread. Any type of soup, stew, anything with liquid and broth, I'm thinking about cornbread. Facts. When I was a kid, I used to eat my food just so I can get to the cornbread because my grandma did not play. She was not going to let you have anything sweet unless you finished all your food. Now, I make my cornbread a little different than my grandma. I actually make sweet potato cornbread, which, yes, that recipe is in the description too, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love it. So why wasn't I able to make this for my client? Fortunately, it was a time conflict. The day she was available for me to cook this, I was going to be out of town, but best believe I am going to make this for her the next time we have a cook day. Even though we're talking about the chili, I am going to show you some other things I was able to cook for my client. Did have someone who ordered a cheesecake. Now, this cheesecake, I'm not into gatekeeping and not sharing recipes, but this is like my signature no-bake cheesecake. So what I will say is it tastes very good. And then I'm also making one of my favorite seasonal loaves. This is actually butternut squash loaf. And so all I do is I puree the butternut squash. I roast it in the oven, and then I puree it and use that in my batter to then make this butternut squash bread. Now, I like pumpkin bread, but this to me, I feel like it's a lot better, honestly, in my opinion, because it's more moist and it has a sweetness to it that comes in from the butternut squash that I think just makes it delicious and just perfect for this time of the year. But if you like pumpkin bread, good for you. I'm not saying you shouldn't like it. My cheesecake, though, this is actually inspired by my great grandmother who passed away back in September. I love making this cheesecake. It's definitely very decadent, not something that I would encourage people to have all the time. But I made this and the butternut squash loaf for someone who wanted to put in an order for their spouse who's having a birthday. So I was excited to be able to get that for her and hopefully make a good time for her. So even though I wasn't able to get the chili to my client, I'm glad I was able to make this loaf and this cheesecake for another client. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video.